Hare Krishna, good evening and welcome to our Wednesday evening talk with me, Devashish, for the London Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math East London branch. As is usual nowadays, I'm broadcasting from my home, and tonight I wanted to speak about Lord Jagannath, as yesterday was Jagannath Ratha Yatra. It seemed that for the first time in millennia that the Ratha Yatra wasn't going to take place because of the worldwide COVID pandemic, or that's affecting everyone in the world. So the Indian government had said it's impossible to maintain any kind of social distancing. Millions and millions of people go to the Ratha Yatra. Anyhow, at the last minute, it was all off for this year for the first time that anyone remembered history. But at the last moment, the High Court of India allowed it to go ahead, but without public participation. So it was only the pandas, the priests from the temple and others. But it happened. But there wasn't the thousands of pilgrims that normally go there, because up until the last minute, everybody thought that it wasn't going to happen. But the Lord's will prevailed, of course. And the Lord came on his chariot, and with his brother and his sister, they went to the Gundicha temple, as is the annual custom. So, and it was televised, so I think you can probably still find it online if you want to see that. It's often something to behold. Seeing the car festival in the time of the British Raj, understanding that it was Jagannath was born the word Juggernaut. Juggernaut meaning some huge unstoppable force, which is usually something that happens, like these huge trucks, these huge lorries. They call them juggernauts. Anyway, this was where the word came from Jagannath. So I won't talk much regarding the Ratha Yatra festival, because everyone knows about the Ratha Yatra festival and the very deep internal meaning of that when Sri Chaitanya Dev danced before the Rath car. That is given in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it is very, very high, maybe above our ability to properly represent it, or even to try to enter into that. So forgive me if I don't talk about that. Those who are more qualified, and if they deem it to be reasonable, then they can speak about that, but not me. But we did hear something from Guru Maharaj about Jagannathdev, an explanation from his lotus mouth, how the Jagannath figure, you can say, in antiquity, how his figure came to be, how we see him. When I first came to the temple, way back in the 1970s, to Bhaktivedanta Manor, at that time, it was Jagannath was at the Bhaktivedanta Manor at that time, and Jagannath was on one side of the altar, and Radha Gokulananda on the other side of the altar, or separate altars, but that worship space. And I was visiting. I was a kid in my late teens, and came to be interested in that, and came to visit the temple with my school friend, and having darshan of the Lord, we saw Lord Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra on the altar there. And of course, when you come to the temple and you see all the devotees with their shaved heads and their wearing their dhoti and, you know, their robes to all intents and purposes, the monks' robes, then you think they've all been there forever. And so I remember asking one of the devotees who was there, he was cleaning the temple room, and I asked him, so I understand that's Radha and Krishna on this side. Who are these figures over here? And his reply was, oh, some demigods or something. So, you know, I had no idea that they were Krishna, and obviously he had no idea that it was Krishna at that time. So, oh yeah, some demigods or something. He was very vague because he probably only moved in yesterday, you know, the day before we'd arrived. So, but who knows? Anyway, later on I discovered it was Lord Krishna and Baladev and his brother and Subhadra, their sister. So there are many different histories of their appearance. Firstly is the historical appearance in Purushottam Dham in Jagannath Puri. But before that, in the time of Krishna's Leela, Bhoma Leela on earth, when Krishna came 5,000 years ago to show his divine pastimes to the world, we hear that, and from Srila Sridhar Maharaj's lotus mouth we heard, that when Krishna is residing in Dwaraka as you know, the king in his princely Leela, Dwaraka Leela, then it was, Guru Maharaj said, sometimes it was the feeling of the queens that although Krishna is ours, he's not fully ours. Sometimes we find that his attention is elsewhere, that he's not fully with us, and why, we thinking, why is that? So we've heard that in his younger days that he lived in Vrindavan, and there he had some very sweet and special pastimes with the cowherd girls. So we think that when he is, you know, like absent, his consciousness is elsewhere, that this is where it is. So they spoke to Mother Rohini. Rohini is the mother of Balaram, because of course she was in Vrindavan when Krishna was born and Krishna grew up and performed his pastimes there. So she knows about Krishna's Leela in Vrindavan. So they petitioned her, please, Mother Rohini, tell us something about Krishna's divine pastimes in Vrindavan, particularly with the gopis. So she couldn't deny their sincere request, but she was cautious that she wouldn't, that if Krishna and Balaram heard, they may become disturbed hearing about these pastimes. So she made some arrangement with the queens. Come and see me after Krishna has taken prasadam, and when he's taking his afternoon rest, after his lunch, he takes a nap. Come and see me then. So they arranged some time. They came that place, and Krishna and Balaram were sleeping in another room nearby. So Rohini sat with the queens, and she told Subhadra, their sister, you stand guard at the door so that Krishna and Balaram, if they will come, you can alert us. Okay, this was how it was done. So Krishna and Balaram sleeping in an adjacent room, and Mother Rohini began to tell the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. What she was able to express, she expressed. But as she was speaking, and the queens were becoming engaged with her, and she became absorbed in that Leela also, then everyone lost, you can say, consciousness of anything other than the Leela. They were all so absorbed in the Leela that they didn't realize that Krishna and Balaram had awoken and had overheard something of this, and they were coming to hear more. And they came to the doorway, and they're unbeknownst to the queens or Rohini, they're standing in the doorway, and they're both hearing the Leela of the Vrindavan, Krishna's Vrindavan Leela. And so what happened was that some divine emotion was awakened within Krishna and with Balaram, and their bodies began to transform. Just like we hear about Mahaprabhu outside the gate of the Jagannath Mandir, that in his ecstatic trance, his body transformed, his limbs went into his body, and he looked something like some kind of just a body with a head, and you know, it was some like bizarre physical transformation happened to him in his ecstasy. So similarly, when Krishna and Balaram were feeling this ecstasy, their body began to transform. Their eyes became big, and their arms withdrew into their limbs, and until the figure of Jagannath was Krishna and Baladev as we know him in the Jagannath temple. And although Subhadra was not in Vrindavan, because she was with them, she's in the doorway with them because she was posted there, Guru Maharaj said some sympathetic transformation happened within her. So this is like some kind of ecstatic rapture and rupture. So like Guru Maharaj says, so like when something happens within the earth and the earthquake comes. So there's something happened within their bodies, something which was triggered by that emotion, that divine remembrance of Vrindavan. So this wonderful figure of Jagannath appeared in this way, and then suddenly Rohini became conscious that the boys were there, and this was taking place. So immediately she stopped her speaking, and when that happened, then the figures remained. Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra in those figures that we know and love. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj says it's a type of rasabas. So there's rasabas, which is generally considered to be a bad thing, the mixing, like improper mixing of rasa. But this is like a rasabas that causes some new rasa, some extraordinary rasa. So Guru Maharaj said it was Vrindavan Rasa, Braja Rasa in Dwaraka. So Krishna is in Dwaraka as a prince, as a king, with many queens in great opulence and with fine palaces and everything. But when he becomes ecstatic, hearing about the beautiful, wonderful, transcendental pastimes of his Vrindavan Leela, he cannot remain in his present state, and so this transformation takes place, and also in Balaram and sympathetically in Subhadra. So this happened, and so when Rohini stopped, then the figures remained, but both Balaram and Subhadra, gradually they came back. But Krishna was in such a trance, such a deep state of remembrance of Vrindavan that they could not bring him back to, like you can say, darker consciousness. He would only stay in that Jagannath form. So in desperation, they took him to a garden nearby, which is known as Nava Vrindavan. And that garden was constructed by Lord Brahma for the pleasure of Lord Krishna in Dwaraka, to resemble the original Vrindavan Dham. So they took him to this Vrindavan garden, Nava Vrindavan, it was known as, and there, although he's conscious, but he cannot leave this figure, this Jagannath figure, that consciousness of the Vrindavan Rasa. So when he's looking, all he can see is Baladev, because Baladev is in Vrindavan, and all else is eliminated from his vision. And then he sees Rohini, because Rohini was also there, and then he begins to think, oh, I am in Vrindavan, everything is fine. And this way, they place some mannequins, you can say. Guru Maharaj, this is Guru Maharaj's expression, mannequins of the residents of Vrindavan in various places. In that Nava Vrindavan, Mother Jashoda, Nanda Maharaj, Subal, Sudam, the cowherd boys, Krishna's chums, and the gopis. And when Krishna is seeing them, then he's becoming pacified and peaceful, and this way. And then he saw the figure of Srimati Radharani, the mannequin that was made of Srimati Radharani, and seeing that, he ran to her and embraced her. And Guru Maharaj said that that observing this, when Satyabhama saw this, some transformation came in her body, similar to that of that Jagannath type of transformation also came in her body. Anyway, the idea worked, and gradually, now Krishna was, although in the Jagannath consciousness, if you like, gradually, Balaram was able to bring him back to that consciousness of Dwaraka in a very gradual way. So those who observed all of that wonderful figure, they prayed to the Lord, please show that form to us eternally. And the Lord said, yes, that form will appear in Purushottam Dham, and there I will live with my brother and sister on the banks of the blue ocean, the Nilachal hill. And this way, Krishna gave his word in this way. So, although in the scripture it is told that the form of Jagannath has been extant or manifest in this world since the beginning of recorded time, so which is a long time ago, of course, especially if you go by the Vedic version. So that means that the Leela, this Braja Rasa in Dwaraka Leela, which is the transformative Leela, which is the cause of the Jagannath form, that it is eternal. It is an eternal Leela of the Lord. So then historically, how the Lord came to be about, we also find that mentioned. That in the time of Maharaj Indrajumna, who was a great devotee of the Lord, that the Lord appeared to him in a form, not the Jagannath form, but appeared to him in a form in a dream, and told him in that dream that I am Nila Madhava, and please you find me. And when the Maharaj Indrajumna awoke from his dream, from his sleep, he immediately realized that dream was not just a dream, but the Lord had indeed spoken to him within that dream. So he called a council of his government and told them, the Lord has given me this task to find him, his form of Nila Madhava. So he sent ministers all over India to try to find that form for years, but they were unable to find him. Anyway, till finally, during this time, one servant of the king, minister of the king, he happened upon one village, and in that village he met a young girl, Brahmin girl, and fell in love with her. And getting the permission of her father, he took her as his wife. And they were married and stayed there he lived there for some time with the family of his wife. but he noticed that every night his father is going in the middle of the night somewhere into the forest, but he is not, and he is not coming back till the early hours of the morning. And when he returns in the early hours of the morning, he's always smelling of all type, like incense and aromatic oils, and marked with the obvious signs of some type of puja, that he's been performing some type of puja. So after a while, the son became a little suspicious. What is this? Where is he going every night? And maybe this is the Lord's will, that I am able to end my quest here, perhaps. So he asked his wife, where does he go every night? And she says he goes to worship his deity. And the husband, he said, and does this deity have a name? She said, yes, his name is Nila Madhava. And she said, can you take me to see him? No, my father doesn't allow anybody to go there. He's very, private in that worship. And that's the way it's been in our family since I was born, at least, and before that. So will you... Anyway, he kept pestering until finally his wife petitioned her father. And her father refused again and again and again, but finally he relented and said, yes, he can accompany me to see the puja of Nila Madhava, but only if he wears a blindfold, only if he's blindfolded, so that he cannot find the way. So it was agreed, and the son went, but I mean to say the minister, who was the husband, now the son-in-law of this Brahmin, he went with his father-in-law, and they went in the night to the place of that worship. And on the way, he had taken with him a small pouch filled with mustard seeds. So as he went, he scattered mustard seeds on the path. Although he was blindfolded, he didn't know where he was going. He scattered mustard seeds along the path, and when he came before the Lord, his blindfold was removed, and he saw indeed the Nila Madhava that King Indradyumna had described to him from his dreams. So he realized, this is the Lord that my king has asked me to discover, and by this, by the will of fate, it has come to pass. So after returning in the morning to their home in the village, he told his wife, now I must return and report to the king. And which he did, and the king came, and following the now grown mustard bushes through the forest, they were able to locate the place of Nila Madhava's temple. So Indradyumna Maharaj bowed down before Nila Madhava, and Nila Madhava spoke with him and told him, you have come as I charged you, and you have found me, and I am most pleased with you. But I will not remain in this form any longer in this world. But before I leave the world, I wish to tell you that you must go to the bank, to the ocean in Nilachal Purushottam, and there on the beach you will find a fallen tree, and from that tree I wish you to carve murtis, deities of myself, my brother Balaram, and my sister Subhadra, and have them installed in a great temple in that city of Puri. So, and then the Lord disappeared from him, and the king returned. And just as the Nila Madhava had described to him, he found on the beach this great fallen tree. So the tree was taken to the palace, and the king brought his murtiwallas to come to carve the deities as he'd been requested by the Lord. But they came and they tried to begin their works, but the wood was so hard that no chisel could penetrate it, no saw could cut it. Nothing they could do would even leave a mark on the wood. They were nonplussed. What can we do? We do not know what we can do. We have tried everything, but nothing works. We are at a loss. But at that time, just at that time, from the heavens appeared the great Vishwakarma. Vishwakarma is the architect of the Devatas. He himself is a god, and he creates the palaces of heaven, you can say, the abodes of heaven. He is the architect, celestial architect to the gods, Vishwakarma. And he appeared there, and he told Indrajumna Maharaj, I have come to make your deities. But I have one caveat, one condition, that I must not be disturbed in my work. I will enter the workshop, the doors will be locked, and while I work, no one must enter for any reason, not even you, my lord, he said to the king. Not even you may come. And when I am finished, then you can come. But if anyone opens the door before, I will immediately stop work and I will not continue. So the condition was agreed, and Vishwakarma entered into the workshop and began carving the deities of Krishna, Balaram, and Subhadra. And for many days they could hear, what you would expect to hear, the tapping of chisels and the cutting of saws and all of the things that you perhaps would associate with a great carpenter or great craftsman at work. They heard that, and the king came and stood outside the door listening for many days. And then after so many days, everything stopped. There was no more noise coming from there of any type. No sound whatsoever, nothing of any movement. And the king became perplexed. Is he finished? What's happening? I don't know. I can't understand anything. He told us not to enter, so if I enter and he's still working, he'll stop the work, and then. But finally, it became too much for the king, and so the king Indrajumna, he entered into the workshop, and there Vishwakarma was nowhere to be found. He was gone. His tools, everything were gone, and what remained were the, you can say, unfinished forms of the murtis of the Lord. But they were unfinished in the form that we know as Jagannath, Balaram, Subhadra. So the Lord took this as the Lord's will, and these deities were duly installed in the Jagannath Mandir, where they are worshipped today. So, we are not Western people. We are not permitted into the temple of Jagannath. It is the rule. But which sometimes it seems unfair. The rickshawwala, he can go in, but the devotees of the Lord, if they are not Indian born, they are not allowed in there. But in this regard, I can tell you a little story about that happened in the time of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, when I was staying with him in Navadvip. At that time, there was a young girl who came, and she was new devotee, and her name was Malini. And she came from England, from the UK, and herself and her sister, they both came to Guru Maharaj and became his disciples. And one day, Malini went with Guru Maharaj's secretary's wife. Her name was Anuradha, a very nice, good devotee of the Lord, and a good devotee of Srila Guru Maharaj, much beloved by him. And anyway, she went to Puri and she took Malini with her. So while they were there, they're going in the rickshaw near to the Jagannath temple. And Anuradha stopped the... Anuradha is from Lanka, Sri Lanka. So she has an Indian body. And so when they were outside the Jagannath temple, she stopped the rickshaw and she told Malini, I'm going in to take darshan of Lord Jagannath. You have to wait here in the rickshaw. And off she went. Perhaps that was a little mean, really. Maybe a little, not mean, but thoughtless. That she knew that Malini would also want to see the Lord, but she didn't understand that, she's not allowed in. But why not? Why is she not allowed in? Just because of her, the color of her skin or whatever it may be. But that's the rule, right? So that's the rule. So anyway, after some time, Anuradha wasn't coming back at that point, and she's getting frustrated sitting on the rickshaw waiting. So she sees that, these old widows, they are going into the temple, bowed over with their sari covering their head with a stick and like that. And she was also wearing a white sari at that time. So she thought, do you know what? I'm just going to sneak in with those widows, with that group of widows over there. So that's exactly what she did. She put the sari over her head and she bent over and joined this little group of widows that were going in, and not noticed by anybody. She was able to enter the Jagannath temple, and she got as far as the inner sanctum, and they were just about to make an offering, vogue offering to the Lord there, and when suddenly somebody spotted, one of the pandas, one of the priests, spotted that a white girl had come into the temple, and a great cry came up, "Gauri, Gauri, Gauri, Gauri!" So then it was like an alarm, like the alarm. Oh, the white girl has come, white girl has come, and the guards there, they're very strict, and they came with their lathis. That means like beating sticks. They came and surrounded her. And of course, when Anuradha heard the great cry come up, Gauri, 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 she could understand. Immediately she could understand, oh, Malini's come into the temple. And before she even saw her, she saw, overseeing the offering, there was the head panda. And she knew the head panda. She had some dealings with him previously, so they were kind of on a friendly terms. So seeing the head panda, she ran to him and she grasped his feet, and she told, "Please, my friend has come in. This is my friend. She doesn't know what she's doing. Please don't beat her." Anyway, they were both expelled, but no beating was given to her, and she was expelled from the temple. And also the whole offering, they threw it out because they considered it to be, now it was spoiled. Just like it says in the scripture that if you're offering to the Lord, before you offer it, if it is seen by a dog, then it cannot be offered to the Lord. So something like that, they thought that this type of contamination had come because the Western girl had entered, the Malecha girl had entered, and so the whole offering was thrown out. Anyway, it was some leela that she had with the Lord. She managed to actually see the Lord for a few minutes, had his darshan, but she was then ousted. So anyway, a few days later, she returned to Navadvip with Anuradha, and of course, the news came to Srila Sridhar Maharaj that this is what happened at the Jagannath temple. So Guru Maharaj called Malini to him and gave a little, you can say, mild chastisement to her. And he said, "Oh, you think that you should have been allowed to go into the temple?" And she said, "Yes, I thought it would it was unfair that I couldn't go into the temple. And Guru Maharaj said, in the time of Sri Chaitanya Dev himself, who is Lord Krishna himself, this was the rule also then. And Haridas Thakur, he never entered into the temple of Jagannath. Although Mahaprabhu called him Namacharya and recognized him as the highest of the devotees. And when Haridas would come to take prasadam with Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu would give first honor, which is called the Shraddhapata. He would give that to Haridas Thakur first to honor him. He said, but he never entered the temple, never ever entered the temple of Jagannathdev. And also Rupa and Sanatan, they never entered the temple of Jagannathdev. Why? Because they were both, although they were both Brahmins, they had accepted positions in the Bengal government of Nawab Hussain Shah, and who was a Muslim, and they'd also adopted Muslim names, Dabir Akash and Shakir Malik, went before they met Mahaprabhu, and they were, but because of that, they considered that their caste, they were both Brahmins, but they considered that their caste had been spoiled, and so they never entered into the temple of Jagannath. Not only that, when they would go to visit Mahaprabhu, they would go to visit Mahaprabhu in the afternoon and around lunchtime. And at that time, there are two paths by which they could go to where Mahaprabhu stayed in the house of Kashi Mishra. So they would go there. But from where they stayed to that place, there was two paths. One was going past the homes of the Pandas, and that was rather cool in the midday because of the high buildings and so on. That was the coolest route. But the other route was across the beach. And at that time, in midday across the beach, the sand is so hot that you can't walk on it. It'll blister your feet. The sand is so hot. And being very fair-skinned myself, I have some experience of that happening to me when I was a child. Not in Jagannath Puri, but on a beach here in the UK, believe it or not, when it was very, very hot. And a little boy that I was there, and with my father, we both walked across the sand when it was absolutely boiling, and both of us got blisters on our feet from the sand. So, but anyway, they chose to go this route across the beach because they thought, if we go the route that passes the Panda's house, and if one of our shadows touches the Panda, then they'll become contaminated and will have to bathe before they can do their service to Lord Jagannath. So we do not want to put them to this kind of inconvenience, so we'll go the other route. And Mahaprabhu, he knew that, but he never changed the rules. And he could have changed those rules. He could have made them give Haridas Thakur admittance to the temple, and he could have made them give admission to Rupa and Sanatan, but he didn't. What was the rule was the rule. And you know, I have a similar experience when we were young brahmacharis in India. Then Guru Maharaj would send us for collection in Calcutta, and this was before we had any centre in Calcutta. So we would have to stay in a hotel somewhere and go, you know, to do our service. But there's one temple there. It's called the Vaikuntanath Mandir, and that temple is like a Ramanuja Sampradaya temple. And if you ask me to take you there, I can't remember where it was, only that if you're on the bus, you go to on the bus that goes to the Ganesh Talkies. The Ganesh Talkies is a cinema, and it's just across the road from that, so that's the stop. You have to get the bus there. That's as much as I can remember, it was so long ago. But anyway, the devotees there, they were very kind and hospitable to us. And so myself and one or two other devotees, when we were going for collection, we would visit that temple, and they would give us hospitality there. They would give us Mahaprasadam and somewhere to rest, and like that. They were very kind. But we weren't allowed to go in there temple room, so to say. They have, as is the South Indian style, they have the mandir, and the deity is Vaikuntanath, and his two consorts, Sri Devi and Bhudevi, and they have like an inner sanctum where devotees can go to circumambulate the deity. And anyone, the rickshawwala, anyone is allowed to do that. But we were not allowed to do that because we're not Indians. We weren't Hindus born Hindus. So then one day I asked the manager of the temple there, actually his name was Hari Krishna Das, funnily enough, and I asked him, and he was a very nice man, very well educated, spoke English, everything, and I asked him, so why aren't we allowed to go in there? Do you think that we are not actually proper devotees, or like that? What is it? And he said, no, we know that you are taking the holy name of the Lord, and that if your devotion is true and pure, then you will go to Vaikuntha when you have finished this life. We have no doubt about that. We have full faith in that. And we honor you as true devotees of the Lord. But this is our rule, and we cannot break our rule. And he said, I'm a servant here. I didn't make the rule. This is the rule. That those who are non-Hindus born, they are not allowed in that part of the temple. It's the rule. But we do not, by that rule, we do not aim to dishonor you as devotees of the Lord, as Vaishnavas. So I said, okay, fair enough. And we accepted that. We could go a little outside and make our obeisance, have darshan of the Lord also. We were allowed to do that. But this was, his answer was, this is the rule. I didn't make the rule, but I have to keep the rule. So that's also how it was in the time of Jagannath, and still is to today. That only those who are Hindu born are allowed to go in the Jagannath temple. And Guru Maharaj told us, even Mahatma Gandhi didn't go into the temple of Jagannath. When Mahatma Gandhi came to Puri, he came, at that time, because he was campaigning, you can say, against untouchability. So the Indian caste system, they have what are called untouchables. Everyone has heard of it, I'm sure. But untouchables mean those that are outside of the caste system. So neither Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra. They're considered less than Shudra. Means people who work with leather and other, like lower, what are considered lower class. And it is all to do with birth and occupation and so many things. But Gandhi hated it and wanted to stamp it out. So when he came and so he adopted, you can say, like a group of followers during his time, and he called them Harijans, which meant, which means children of God. Basically, it means children of God. He wanted to say that they are not untouchables; they are Harijan. We are all children of God, low-born, high-born, everything. So we agree with that. But when he came to the temple with the Harijans, they stopped him at the door. No, Gandhiji, Bapuji, you may not enter with them. You may enter, but they may not enter. Then Gandhi told, if they are not allowed, then I also will not enter. And he without entering the temple, he left. And where he was staying, the accommodation where he was staying in Puri, his wife was also with him. But in the evening, that same evening, his wife, like in a kind of hidden way, she went to take darshan of Lord Jagannath. And she went into the temple and took darshan of Lord Jagannath. When she came back, Gandhi was waiting. He understood what had happened. He was very angry. Why you have gone to take darshan of Jagannath? I am your husband and I have not gone. You should also not go. This was his position. But Guru Maharaj said, but we support her because her relationship with Lord Jagannath, that is eternal. And his relationship with him as husband, that is only a temporary thing. So no husband should interfere with the relationship between the wife and the Lord. Whatever the social system may be, that should never be allowed to happen. So we support her, Guru Maharaj said. There are many cases. They have very strict rules. They do not allow the mridanga into the Jagannath temple because it's made of leather. And however, that is meant to be, like once the cow has died naturally, they use the skin. But even so, the fact that the drum has leather, they don't allow it. And one famous devotee, Guru Maharaj told us, one famous devotee, he came there. And wherever he went around the country, he used to wear his guru's sandals on his chest. Like you often see sadhus, wearing these wooden sandals. And so he had his guru's wooden sandals, paduka. And he would keep them on a chain or a rope and wear them on his chest, like the footwear of his Gurudev. So when he came to the temple, they refused him entry. Whoa. You can't come in with a pair of shoes around your neck. And he said, no. These are my Gurudev's paduka. They are very holy. And they said, they may be holy to you, but to us, they're just a pair of shoes, and you cannot enter the temple wearing a pair of shoes. So he was rejected. And we heard all these things from Guru Maharaj. So this was Guru Maharaj's, you can say, chastisement to that young girl, and trying to explain to her. And then he said, and even I heard that you were spared the beating by the servants of Jagannath. And he said, if you had taken that beating, then maybe you would have received Lord Jagannath's mercy. To which she burst into tears. We can understand. She was young and she was new, and we often think how unfair it seems to us from our perspective. I remember when we went to Remuna, is it, I think, where Sachi Gopal is, where the deity of Sachi Gopal. They also don't allow non-Indian people to see the Lord. And we went there as part of our parakram. It is just outside of Puri. We went to there with our party, and all the non-Indian devotees were not allowed to go in. And I was one of those not allowed to go in. So we had a little, kirtan and everything outside. It was evening time. But the priests came out, and very joyfully they told us, you're not allowed in here, with big smiles on their faces. They were very happy to tell us that we weren't allowed in. Anyway, we have to accept it is the will of the Lord, because nothing happens that is not the will of the Lord, and especially in consideration of the Leela of the Lord. We heard also that Ramanujacharya, one of the reasons that Ramanujacharya, he is the guru of the Sri Sampradaya, the Acharya of the Sri Sampradaya, the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. He is renowned as the head of the Ramanuja Sampradaya, or the Sri Sampradaya in southern India. And he is actually an avatar of Anantashesh. And one of the things that he was charged with by the Lord when he appeared in the world was to establish the proper standard of archan, or deity worship, in every Krishna temple in India. So this was part of his work, is he's going, visiting the various temples and adjusting the worship there to the proper standard. And everyone accepting, because he's the Acharya of the Sampradaya, then everybody knows. And a great devotee, great philosopher, great preacher, and had soundly defeated Shankaracharya in his Mayavad conception. Ramanuja famous for that. So when he arrived in Puri, then he came to the Jagannath temple with the intention of adjusting the worship there. The worship is going on there in its own particular way for many, many millennia. But Ramanuja, thinking that this was his duty, that he came there. And he was received in the temple by the priests there and given a room and everything and honored as the acharya of the sampradaya, and everyone very happy. And the next day he's planning to begin his examination of the method of worship and make any adjustments. So he was given a very palatial bedroom, and in that bedroom they gave him a big 4-poster bed to sleep, very honorable and fitting. So he took rest on that bed, and in the night Lord Jagannath appeared to him in a dream and told him, "Oh, Ramanuja, we don't want your Vidimarga here." Vidimarga means, the rules and regulations, strict rules and regulations of worship. "We do not want your Vidimarga here in Puri Dham." And then when after hearing this from the Lord directly, Lord Jagannath directly in his dream, then when Ramanuja woke the next morning, he was still in that very palatial 4-poster bed, but 300 miles away from Puri. He had been transported in the night 300 miles away, but still in the same bed. So then he understood it is the exception. Jagannath temple, that is the exception. And it is a very wonderful temple and unique temple. And even to this day, the temple is legally owned by Balaram. Balaram is the proprietor of that temple. And all of the farms in the local area, they're all tithed to the temple, which means whatever they grow, whatever they produce, a percentage of that has to go to the Jagannath temple. And we see that the Lord, it appears to me at least that his main pastime is eating. There's something like 64 different offerings every day, and each one of those is some kind of extraordinary prasadam. And Jagannath prasadam is very famous all over the world and with all the devotees all over the world. So I went to Puri once, and we were staying with our devotees. At this time, our mott was not built there. The land had been given on the beach where the temple is, our temple, Puri Chaitanya Saraswat Mott. But no construction or anything was built there. At that time, the place was called Gita Ashram. And it was a very nice little compound where the temple is now, but a small compound with a few buildings, and those buildings were in a small courtyard with a gate, and 2 brahmacharis stayed there at that temple, or rather that little ashram, Gita Ashram. One was called Sachisuna, who is still serving in Chaitanya Saraswat Math somewhere, I believe. And the other one his name was Mahananda. He was a Risan devotee, a Risan Mahananda, not our Madhusudan Maharaj, but another Mahananda. And both were disciples of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and both very sweet devotees. And they're staying there and looking after the place and doing some program. So myself and 2 godbrothers from Australia, we went to stay there. And for a few days, with permission of Guru Maharaj, we came to Puri to see that place and spend a few days there, see the holy places of pilgrimage and so on. So, we stayed in that Gita Ashram, and Mahananda, he was the cook there. And every day he would cook with mustard oil. And I like mustard oil, but everything, every day, just cooked in mustard oil. After a few days with the heat and everything, you can become very sick if you eat that. and you know, not being used to that, after a few days, just the smell of the cooking was making me feel ill. So I would refuse when I was called for prasadam. I would refuse the prasadam, and those devotees, they were so innocent and so sweet that that they thought, oh, Devashish is fasting. Then every day he's fasting. Why he's not taking prasadam? And they were getting very disturbed. But I wasn't fasting. I was just going up to Swagadwar, which is, you know, like the kind of tourist area of Puri. And there's like a market on the beach there, or near the beach there, in that area of Swagadwar. And every day I'd go up there, and there was a man who sold these big bread rolls, like kind of this size bread rolls. And I'd buy 2 of those, and just across from him, there was another man who would sell different kinds of pakoras, and like a mixed bag of pakoras for 1 rupee, like a big bag of pakoras. So I bought that big bag of pakoras, 2 bread rolls, and some Kishan tomato ketchup, and I'd open up the rolls, stuff them full of pakoras, tomato ketchup. That was my lunch. And you know, being a big sense enjoyer that I am, that was great for me, you know. But I didn't tell them, and they thought, oh, when they would call me for prasadam, I would just say, no, I'm not feeling to take any prasadam, and so they're thinking innocently, they're thinking, oh, Devashish is fasting every day. So this one day, one lunchtime, that devotee Mahananda Prabhu, he came to, you know, the door of my room, and he said, Prabhu, please come. He didn't speak much English. Please come, take prasadam. And usual, no, thank you, Prabhu, I'm not taking any prasadam today. And you know, so to his reckoning, I've been like fasting for the last 4 days or something. So he's very disturbed, and then he said, like with tears in his eyes, he said, okay, I'm going. And he rushed out and ran out of the ashram. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done? You know, then I said to Sachi Suna, where's he going? Is he coming? And he said, don't worry, Prabhu, it's okay, it's okay. And about maybe an hour later, he came back with a trolley laden with Jagannath Prasad from the temple of Jagannath. And, you know, in the big clay pots, which they're cooked and everything. And I was thinking, wow, this is amazing. And I said, how did you get this? Because it's not so easy, to, you know, from the main offering to get this prasadam. How did you get this? And, you know, so much. There was so much. Really, it was a feast. And he said, a little shyly, he said, I told them, I need this prasadam for Shanta Maharaj. Then Shanta Maharaj was Guru Maharaj's godbrother who lived in Puri, and he's a very famous Vaishnava, disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, very close friend of Guru Maharaj, and he has a temple and ashram in Puri, and everyone knows him and everyone revered him as a great sadhu there. So when Mahananda Prabhu went to the mandir, he's wearing his, you know, his saffron cloth and everything. He's obviously from Gaudiya Math or some branch of Gaudiya Math. So he just told the Panda, I need Mahaprasadam for Shanta Maharaj. And they just gave him. That's how respected he was, Srila Shanta Maharaj. And they gave all this prasadam, and he came back like with a little truck, you know, like hand truck full of prasadam, and I took the Jagannath prasadam. It is the first time that I'd taken directly Lord Jagannath's prasadam, and it was so wonderful. It was really so wonderful. And many places sell what they say is Jagannath prasadam, but often it is not. And one test, of course, is that if it has chili in, it's not Jagannath prasadam. And if it has potato or tomato or aubergine, eggplant, that means it's not Jagannath Prasad, because none of these things are offered to Lord Jagannath. Only the things that are indigenous to India, and believe it or not, chilies are not indigenous to India. Chilies came from South America on the spice trades. Now they become, like as Indian as, or anything, that you might think of as being Indian, chili. But chili isn't originally from India, so they don't offer it to Lord Jagannath. Neither is potato, neither is tomato, neither is aubergine, or eggplant. None of these things are indigenous vegetables there. But even without any of those things, they make the most wonderful prasadam. So we're taking this prasadam, and there's that very beautiful, special sweet dal that they offer to Lord Jagannath, which is just so wonderful. And I said to Prabhu, Mahananda Prabhu, I said, is there any prasadam is Jagannath on any, do they are they offered the same things, or do they have separate? He said separate. He said this one and this one and this one, they are Baladev, and this one and this one and this one, Jagannath. And after they've taken prasadam, then Subhadra she takes the remnants of both of them. Oh, okay. But then taking the prasadam, then I said, so it seems to me that Jagannath's prasadam is much more simple than Balaram's prasadam. Is it correct? He said, yes, it is correct. Because you could see that what he told was Jagannath's prasadam, although it was super delicious, it was very simple. And what was Balaram's prasadam, very intricate and fancy. So I said, why is that? Is there some reason for that? He said, yes, because Krishna will accept whatever. He's made that promise, right, in Gita, that if you offer me a fruit, flower, water, leaf with love, I will accept it. So then his promise is there. Anything, simple thing, he will accept. But Balaram, if you offer to Balaram not the best everything, the most special things, then he becomes very displeased and may become angry with you. So, this is very interesting. So, anyway, this was my first experience of taking the Jagannath Prasad in Puri. That time we went, it was not Rath Yatra time, so we didn't get to see the Rath Yatra. And I must say, even to this day, I have not gone for the Rath Yatra. But it's not, one of those things on my bucket list, if you like, that I hope, if the Lord is willing, to see the Rath Yatra of Lord Jagannath. Srila Acharya Maharaj, he goes every year. This year he didn't go, but generally, because it was, to all intents and purposes, it had been cancelled. But normally every year he goes. And so maybe one day, if Krishna is kind, I may get the fortune to go with him to see that before my body becomes too unable to do that. Srila Govinda Maharaj also would go many times, and he used to visit because there's huge crowds, like millions of people come to see that, and in the actual procession. But when the Lord comes to Gundicha, then he stays overnight on his chariot with his brother and sister. They stay on their chariots outside the Gundicha temple for the whole night, and they give darshan the whole night. So that's the best time to go. And Srila Govinda Maharaj used to go in the car, and then he could have darshan, you can say, like at his leisure, if you like, without the huge crowds. If you go in the midnight or just after midnight, or so, you can see the Lord there. Very beautiful thing. Anyway, these things I am remembering, and these pastimes of Lord Jagannath. Lord Jagannath, very famous form of the Lord, and yesterday was his Rath Yatra day, and so in some appreciation of that, I'm trying to give some remembrance of Lord Jagannath. Maybe some things perhaps you've not heard before, I hope, or even if you have heard them before, I don't tire of hearing those things again and again. We relish those things. To hear those things more and more, because they are part of the eternal reality, and those are the things that we hanker for. we hanker to be connected with that eternal reality, where nothing is stale and nothing is old, but everything is ever fresh and ever new. And that is the spiritual vitality of Krishna consciousness, is that it's ever fresh and it's ever new. You know, how is it possible otherwise that, you know, for 40 years we've been practicing this, chanting the same mantra every day, singing the same songs every day, and reading the same scriptures every day, and we're not feeling tired. We're not feeling, you know, bored by that. In fact, we get more and more light from that, and more enthusiasm from that as we continue, as we get older, as we become more attuned to that by the grace of the Lord. Srila Govinda Maharaj would say, even now, since my childhood I've been reading Bhagavad Gita, but even now I am getting new light from that every time I open it. So we can see that, you know, there is no end to the spiritual reality, and it is always more and more wonderful, more and more beautiful, and more life-giving. It pulls us in, and it gives us life, and irresistibly we're drawn to serve that plane. And that is the greatest fortune of life. So reflecting on this, how fortunate we are that we have some inclination towards these things, however meager it may be, however faulty and small our attempt may be. These things, they really make life worth living. The spiritual things, serving the spiritual things, not to control the things of this world, but rather to serve the things of that world. That's our aspiration. And with that aspiration, we try to proceed on our journey back to home, back to God. So here I will finish my talk for this evening. Thank you all for joining with me and listening to my talk. If you have any questions that you'd like me to address in further Wednesday evenings, please email me or private message me, or send something to the East London Mott Facebook page, and we'll see if I can address them according to what I know or what I've heard from Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Govinda Maharaj, and our Acharya Brinda. Until then, please stay safe, be well, and chant the holy names of the Lord. Always make that the foundation of your day, of your life, of everything that you do. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is your friend, your savior, and your salvation. Thank you all again. I hope you have a good week, and I hope we get to meet together again soon. Hare Krishna, Jai Gurudev, Hare Krishna.